and this afternoon we're going to be discussing introduction to science and biology. Now, what is science? Science is a systematic study. It's a study that makes a systematic inquiry either into living or non-living things. Now, look at what I said. I said it's a study that makes a systematic inquiry into either living or non-living things. So what do I mean by that? I said two things: systematic and inquiry. Systematic means that science is methodical in what it does. For anything to be considered as a science, the thing must take steps. For any study to be considered as a science, there must be steps. Things must be done in steps, one after the other. And then it's systematic one, and then it's an inquiry, meaning that science wants to find out. It wants to find out about living things or about non-living things. We know there are different kinds of sciences. There's life science, there's science of non-living things, like you have in engineering and these other aspects. So that is science. Now, biology. What is biology? Biology is the study of life. The word biology is coined from two words, bios and logos. Bios means life and logos means study. These two words are Greek words, and then they were coined and brought together to make the term biology, which is the study of life. Now, when we study biology, there are two major aspects of biology, two very important aspects of biology. The first one is zoology. Zoology is the study of animals. All the study of animals gathered together, we refer to that as zoology. Then we also have botany. Botany is the study of plants. Every study that has to do with the structure, function, and how plants look like, all of that is put together under botany. So we have zoology and we have botany. Now, these are not the only branches of biology. Biology also has other branches such as ecology. Ecology is the study of the interaction that living things have with themselves and with their environment. So the interaction, the relationship that living things have with themselves first, and secondly with their environment. That's what we refer to as ecology. We also have anatomy. Anatomy is the aspect of biology that deals with internal structures. You could have plant anatomy, we have animal anatomy, we even have human anatomy. All these aspects of biology deal with the internal structures of the living things. How are these structures arranged? What are the layers in which these structures are arranged? All the different structures within either the plant or the human or the animal body. What are these structures and what are their functions? That is what anatomy studies. We also have physiology. Physiology talks about functioning, the functioning of the different parts of the body. Now, the way the digestive system functions, for an example, that is called physiology. Physiology wants to tell us how this body functions, and these are important parts of biology. We also have morphology. When you say morphology, you talk about shape and size. So morphology is also the aspect of biology that looks at the shape and the size of different organisms, how they are arranged, what they look like. That is what is studied in morphology. So you have anatomy, you have physiology, you have morphology, you have ecology. These are all different aspects of biology. But majorly, like I said before, we have botany and we have zoology. Now, science, like I said before, is a systematic inquiry into either living things or non-living things. Now, because it is systematic in nature, it goes step by step, and there are different steps that we undergo while we are trying to study science. The first step is observation. Any scientist must be observant. He must look at his environment. He must understand what is happening in the environment. And observation involves, for human beings, the using of the five senses to gather information of what is happening in the environment. So our five senses, we know we have the sense of hearing, we have the sense of smell, the sense of sight, the sense of taste, the sense of touch. So using all these senses to understand or make meaning of our environment is what happens in observation, and that's the very first step in the scientific process. We also have classification, which refers to the grouping of objects, the grouping of things into categories. That is classification, which is also done in science. The third thing is inference. Inference is to gather knowledge or to gather information. When things have been put in groups and classes in classification, we try to make sense of that data. We try to make sense of that information. That is what we do in inference. In scientific methods, we also have measurement. And what is the measurement? Measurement is the use of instruments, different instruments, to generate results. And what are these results generated from? There are different kinds of measurements that are used. We can use the meter rule, you can use your microscope. All these equipments are used to generate results from whatever phenomenon is being studied. Now, we also have hypothesis in science. What is hypothesis? Hypothesis is an informed guess, is an informed statement. When observation is made by the scientist then makes a statement. That statement is not necessarily a statement of fact, and it's not a statement that is a fallacy. It's a statement that is in the middle. The scientist, based on his observation, is saying that perhaps something may be caused by something else. For an example, a scientist looks at a light bulb and he sees the light coming on, and he begins to wonder, this light, is it powered by electricity? Is it powered by sunlight? Is it powered by wind? Is it powered by air? As he's making this observation and thinking these things in his heart, he can make a statement. He can say this bulb is powered by wind energy. Now, that is a statement, is a hypothesis. It may be true, it may not be true. And that takes us to the next step in the scientific process, which is a theory, a law, or a principle. Now, before something graduates to become being called a theory, a law, or a principle, it is a hypothesis that has gone through series of experiments, different experiments. Now, what are experiments? Before we even get to theory and law, experiments are activities that are conducted to test a hypothesis. So after hypothesis, you get to experiments. You test the hypothesis many times by running it through a series of activities. Now, when these experiments have been done over and over again, if the hypothesis holds true, for an example, gravity. We all know about gravity. If you toss something in the air, the thing is sure to come back to the ground because gravity is functional on Earth. And so gravity has graduated from being a hypothesis of somebody to being a law, because it has been tested over and over many times using experiments. And when it has been tested many times by experiments, and this statement, which is the hypothesis, has been found to be true, it has now graduated to become either a theory, a law, or a principle. So the theory, law, or principle are statements of facts. They were statements that were initially hypotheses, but they were tested over a long period of time and they held true, and then they have graduated to be what we call theories and laws, and no more hypotheses, which are educated guesses. Now, when an experiment is being carried out in science, there are steps that we take to carry out an experiment. The first one is the aim. Now, before you carry out an experiment, you need to have an aim. You need to realize, okay, what is the hypothesis that is being tested? We are testing if gravity functions on Earth. That's an aim. So after the aim, the second thing in an experimental process is the apparatus. In your science notebook, you want to write down, what are the apparatus? What are the equipment that I'm going to use for this experiment? Is it a burette? Is it a pipette? Is it a beaker? Is it a conical flask? What am I using for this experiment? What am I using to run these activities? The apparatus is put down. The third thing is the method. The method talks about the procedure. What exactly am I going to do? Am I heating for 5 minutes? How many mils of fluid am I using? How many mils of water am I using? Am I using acid? Am I using base? Whatever you are doing, step by step, is what we refer to as the method. Now, when the method has been done, then in an experiment we reach a conclusion. Now, what's the conclusion? That's the information that is being drawn from the experiment that has been conducted. And that conclusion will tell us whether we are agreeing with our earlier hypothesis or we are disagreeing with the hypothesis. Now, it's also important to realize that experiments are conducted under controlled environment. And what do we mean by controlled environment? Controlled environment is an environment where the factors that are being investigated in the experiment must be present. If you are working on gravity, for an example, then first of all, you must be doing that experiment on Earth, where gravity is functional, and then you must have objects that you are throwing up into the air and seeing what happens with them. So experiments must be conducted under controlled environment, meaning that those particular factors that are being investigated must be present in the experiment as it is being done. Now, what's the usefulness of science and biology? We'll end this class by talking about the usefulness of science and biology. Science is useful in medicine, production of drugs, production of vaccines, diagnosis of diseases. All that is done in medical care and in nursing care, science is at the base of it all. In the manufacturing industry, for the production of wine, for the production of bread, for the production of cars, for the production of different machineries, science is being used in all these things. What of in engineering? Science does a lot in the areas of construction of bridges, roads, mining, in also the crude oil, exploration, All these things are being done with the knowledge of science. Even in agriculture, producing new breeds of animals and even of seedlings, all of these are the function of science, and it makes science very important. Even in transportation, in different areas of life, science is very important. That brings us to the end of our class for today. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.